Let's say I need 100K to buy my dog a prosthetic leg, but I only have a $1 million portfolio to help me out. I'm going to load up the portfolio and show you there's two ways to get out of any investment. The way 95% of investors do it, and the other way. The way that lets you raise cash from your portfolio while paying the most minimal amount of tax legally possible. Now, I want to help my dog, but I don't want to lose money unnecessarily in the process. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I'd raise that 100K from the portfolio in the easiest, simplest way possible. Let's go. So let's take a quick look at what's in this portfolio to see what we're working with. So it's about $1 million worth, and there's a few stocks and ETFs for us to work with. You can see we've got the usual couple of Australian stocks in here, the CSL, BHP, got Apple, Nvidia, some Bitcoin ETF, and then IVV and VAS. I've also chucked Guzman in there because I'm a huge fan of burritos. I eat Guzman all the time, so it's got a feature in there. Now you can see if we need to cash 100K out of this, what would I do? The first place that you need to start is the unrealized gains report. What this report shows you is if we liquidated everything today, what would the capital gain be that we have to file with the ATO? So you can see at a portfolio level, it'd be about $205,000 capital gain, but we're not selling the whole thing, we just need 100K. Typically, I would scroll down to the capital losses because, as you probably know, you don't pay tax on a capital loss. And you can see with these four parcels here, we can actually make $69,000 of our 100K without paying any tax because these are all running at a loss. That's the first place I would start. Then if we scroll up a bit, we have short-term gains and long-term gains. Now, I would stay completely away from the short-term gains because short-term gains don't qualify for the 50% CGT discount here in Australia. Whereas the long-term gains, we're only going to pay half of what the capital gain is in tax. We've realized about 70,000, assuming we liquidate these four things, and we need another 30,000. So the next step would be to go through these holdings and then figure out which ones I want to get rid of. And if we have a quick look, there's an IVV parcel there for about 32,000. We could potentially get rid of that. We could get rid of some of this IBIT gain. That's 37,000. So we've got a few options there. So this gives us that high level view of what we're working with. Now, other things factor in here. You should have an investment strategy, and the investment strategy would factor in. So maybe even though we could sell these and realize the 69,000, maybe we're particularly tied to Guzman here because I love burritos. So I don't necessarily want to sell that position or sell all of it. So what can we do? Well, the next step is we start looking through these and maybe we identify some of the bigger positions that we want to get rid of. Now the next thing, so let's say Apple's done pretty well and we might want to get rid of some Apple. If we jump into Navexa AI, we can actually ask, what if I sold 30,000 worth of my Apple holding? And you can see this gives us what the estimated tax liability is going to be if we sell $30,000 worth of Apple. So it takes the current market price to give us that $30,000. And we can see here that after it applies the CGT discount, it would be a $12,751 gain to get that $30,000 out. Now, maybe we're happy with that, and that's a trade we're going to do. So the next thing I'm going to do before I go to the brokerage and execute any trades is take a look into some of those holdings I want to sell. So if we go into CSL, which we saw earlier in the unrealized gains report was going to give us some losses, we can have a look at the trades here and we can see the current market price is about $150. And we have three different positions here. So we originally bought it at 102 and then 330, then 298. If you are quick at maths, you can see that this $100 parcel is less than 150, and that's going to result in a capital gain. Whereas these other two, if we sold them, is going to be a capital loss. So next I'd add in a fake sell trade. And let's say we wanted to sell 200 shares at the current market price. I'm going to add in this fake trade, which I can just remove later. But I add in this fake trade so that I can see what effect it's going to have. Now, if I jump over to the capital gains tax report and run it for this financial year, you can see that we're going to get a $13,000 capital loss. Now that's not too bad because we're not going to pay tax on that. But the problem is, if we look down, we see that, part of it is a $4,800 gain and part of it is a loss. And that is because it is defaulted to FIFO, which is first in, first out. And this is what a lot of accountants do. It's what a lot of investors do. And it's generally not the optimal CGT strategy to run if you're trying to minimize your tax in this particular financial year. So what we can do in Alexa is go to tax settings and change from FIFO to a strategy called Minimise CGT. We hit the button and you can see now we have a $32,000 capital loss. So that's a much bigger loss than before. And you can see that gain has disappeared because now this tax-aware CGT strategy knows, if we jump back into CSL, that instead of selling the 200 with a FIFO, so 100 from here, which is a gain, and 100 from here, which is a loss, the Minimise CGT strategy has identified, let's sell these two parcels first, because we need to sell 200. There's 200 available here, and both of them are a capital loss. So that's why it is critical to know your cost base, because then you can run these types of simulations. Now, yeah, you could run this in a spreadsheet if you want to keep very accurate records and muck around with changing calculations. But you can see here in Alexa, quickly change strategy and we see what the result is. So let's say we'll leave that one in there, which locks us in 30,000. If we go back to the unrealized gains report, we can double check what the rest of those losses are. So we've got Guzman and IBIT. So let's go into Guzman, we can take a look. There's just one parcel here, so we know that we can liquidate that whole thing and realize $19,000. Now again, we can jump back to the capital gains tax report for this financial year and we can go, cool, we've now realized 56,000, which is going to be a capital loss. Perfect, still not paying tax. IBIT, we have two parcels here, so we can see the current price is 38. And we bought a 25 and a 54. So depending on which one of these we sell will be a capital gain or capital loss. We want to keep going with the capital loss theme. So we'll try and sell this one here. So we've got 500 available. I'd add a sell trade for 500, set the price and the exchange rate there. Now we can jump back to the capital gains tax report for this year. And now we're still running at a $68,000 loss because we have sold those four losers. Now, we're out of available losses. We're going to have to sell some gains. But the cool thing is we have $68,000 in losses. So as long as this stays at negative or zero, we don't end up paying any tax at all. So we can jump back into one of our winners. So say Apple, let's sell 30 grand's worth. So we'll set the price. So we'll sell about 100 shares for 36,000. We'll add that trade in. So we're just getting 36 grand out of here. Back to the capital gains tax report for this year. And you can see that we're still running a negative $51,000 loss, even though we have realized we've got 68,000 here, 9,250 here, 7,000 there. I think we're getting pretty close to our 100K. And you can see what's interesting here is Minimise CGT has actually decided to use a short-term gain that doesn't qualify for the discount, but even without the discount ends up being less tax than using one of the long-term gains. So it's a very tax effective strategy if you're trying to minimize CGT in this current financial year. Now, before you come at me in the comments, yes, that does mean at some point you have to sell the higher price parcels and pay more tax, but that's where your strategy and your multi-year planning comes in. So if you know this year is a particularly high income year for yourself, then maybe minimizing CGT could be the right way to go. If you didn't make much income this year, then maybe maximize gain could be the right way to go. It really depends on your goals, but there's a lot of flexibility in there for what you want to do. Now, what's really interesting is that we're running a minimized CGT strategy here, and it's given us a negative $51,000 capital loss. If we changed back to FIFO, which is what most investors do and a lot of accountants do as well, and we update the report, you can see with the exact same trades, we would have ended up paying money in tax because it would have been an $1,800 capital gain. So you can see the effectiveness of being able to change those strategies to completely change, like an $1,800 gain versus a nearly $60,000 loss. This is a very significant tax outcome. And on a $1 million portfolio, you can see how big that swing is, and it could have just as easily gone into the $50,000 or $60,000 capital gain if we'd done what most investors did and just off gut feel looked through some of these holdings and thought, oh, I'm going to sell, Apple's doing well, let's sell some of that, and Nvidia's done well, let's sell some of that, and then realized a huge tax bill which they don't figure out until July. So there we go, we got our 100K out. And just like that, I can walk my dog Wolfie again.
Wolfie's fine, honey. Wolfie's just fine.
So now you've seen the process on how to get money out of your portfolio. And in this scenario, we were forced to get 100K out. But there's plenty of scenarios where you're not forced to get a particular amount out and you're selling for all types of reasons. It might be strategy, it might be you need some cash for something, or it might be you're rebalancing your portfolio. But it doesn't really matter which one of those scenarios it is. What matters is that you know your cost base, you know your numbers, and you know what parcels you have available in order to cash that out. And particularly when rebalancing, there's lots of trades getting executed that people don't typically think about until the end of financial year. But if you think about it ahead of time, that puts you in the top percentage of investors who actually factor tax into the final amount they take home at the end of the day. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Check out one of our others. See you in the next one.